host, Coach Connor, and then let's see how this is working this way. And then that would be my left on your guys' screen, your right, I have JP Fasone. JP, how you doing today, sir?
Good, doing well. Glad to be back.
Love it, love it. And right above him, we have Connor Burns. Burnsy, how you doing, brother?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just a nice little Sunday watching some football. Can't complain.
Hey, there we go. What you got in that lip there, boy?
I don't know. It's called a Siberian Slim. It's got a lot of nicotine in it, so you know.
Really matters.
Siberian, bro. That's a Canadian thing right there, bro. What are you doing?
Dude, yeah, I'll go grab it. It's so expensive up here. I really need to quit.
Yeah, it is.
Dude, I remember running an illegal tobacco ring when I was playing in Canada. Every time like my parents or someone would send me something, I would get them to throw in like a roll of Copenhagen or some shit, sell that thing for like $6 or six times over the value. Oh,
Oh,
incredible.
dude, every time I come back up from college, I'd bring like 3 or 4 logs up, and I'd sell every can for like $20 a pop. I literally would make like $400 every time I came home. It was amazing.
Gosh, dude, this entire podcast I was doing earlier with Jason, there was freaking devices that were just going off that I didn't know I even freaking had. My computer was making noises. Like it was making alert noises. I've never heard my Mac computer make alert noises, but in the middle of my podcast with Jason today, it's deciding to do it. So that was pretty fun. There we go, silent mode on. This past week, gentlemen, we had talked about bringing on the discussion of direction. A couple weeks ago, we made we had the topic of timing. This past week, we had direction. Burnsy, if you don't mind, what did you do with direction? What drills? Did you guys have conversations? How did your players kind of run through? What about this past week with direction? How did you guys run with that?
So, like, in terms of direction, I mean, like, in terms of like the load and whatnot, I mean, I'm a big believer in like we have to have all of our energy going towards the pitcher, right? Like that's the biggest thing. I feel like it's one of the things that actually one from our hitters gets really overlooked, and two, they don't actually feel it happening until you like point it out. And it's honestly it can become like really problematic. Even like the littlest like let's say you're striding a little bit too far open, like it can cause like a huge chain of effect right in your swing, or getting a little bit too close. That you can kind of stay on the middle away pitch, but if you stride a little bit too close and you don't have great hip function, then it makes it really tough to kind of hit that inside pitch. So it's something I always kind of hammer in on our hitters. But as for drills, I think I don't really have any drills for it. It's more just like a conscious thing that you always need to be focused on, I'd say.
Baby. JP, what do you have for this past week with direction?
Um, I kind of, I don't know. When I think of direction, I most of the time I think of like that path is kind of like when somebody says, "Oh, this guy got poor direction." I don't normally think it's a bad path issue. Um, so I had a kid on was it Friday who I've worked with over the summer for a couple months and came back for kind of a week assessment and just a little tune up before the season starts. And his path was starting to get a little more vertical. And big kid, really strong, senior in high school, hits the ball really hard, but his misses were like he could pull the ball really well. And then whenever he got a little beat, it would hit those flares to the opposite field. So he was struggling to kind of get good backspin line drives the other way. And the big thing we noticed was like his first move into the hitting zone was more of like that lead arm starting to go this way, bat starting to come down. And since he's athletic enough, he would kind of flatten it out towards the end of his swing. So when he caught balls out front, and being big and strong, and having good bat speed. Like he could hit the ball really far to the pull side, and was struggling to kind of adjust to outside pitches and also just getting a little bit deeper point of contact. So him like just kind of breaking down, okay, like this is the issue. Why is that happening? And he was a guy that came in over the summer with a lot of hip slide, and was just kind of a freak athlete. Like honestly, had a bad swing, but was just super athletic and really strong and got away with everything. And so we kind of cleaned that up over the summer, but you could start to see it creeping back in during his time away. Not to the same extent, but he would just kind of, let's see if I can stand up and kind of demonstrate it.
Let's go.
So he would get to his load position. He would get to his load, and instead of like turning right away from there, he would have just a little bit of a kind of move this way, and so it would cause his hands to kind of drop underneath. Like I said, big and strong guy, kind of flattened out towards the end. So all I really told him was just like, hey, like we just have that little hip slide, and so he's really smart, really adaptable, really adjustable. So all I had to tell him was, hey, we got that little hip slide at the start. You go from constraint or from your launch position, from where you land, whatever you want to call it. I just want you to turn. Like I just want you to feel like you are turning right away. And did a couple, and was kind of felt comfortable with it. And so for the rest of it, like the guy that came, it was just kind of like, hey, like he hit a slice. Okay, did you feel that one? Yeah. What'd you feel? Okay, I felt my hands go like this. Okay, what's your correction going to be? Well, I'm going to try and just keep my hands by my shoulder. Okay, sweet, try that. Go for it. And then hit really well, and then had one where he missed it. You feel that? Yep. So by the end of the hour time he had in the cage, whatever, he was hitting really well. So going forward, it's just going to be a lot of like just kind of fine tuning that to make sure his path, his direction stays more rotational instead of getting as vertical.
And this is me just kind of throwing a dart, I guess. I've kind of put this idea in my head. I want to see what your thoughts are on it. For someone that's kind of struggling with that immediate rotation, have you guys added any counterweights done anything like handle loaded or extra counterweighted on the handle rather than like any barrel loaded things?
All right, so Burns, you go first.
No, I actually can't say I have.
JP?
I sometimes. I think I often will lean towards like just focusing on I often lean towards like trying to focus on like what the hips are doing, and I with the guys that I work with most of the time, and this obviously is different based on different skill levels and everything like that, but when I start talking about what your hands are doing, guys are pretty good at manipulating the barrel with their hands. And so when I start talking about kind of those smaller moves, I'll see a lot of guys start to get like this way pretty easily because they're trying to fight this move. So when I start talking about keeping your hands back this way, they'll normally just kind of throw them out and then kind of pull down and across. So what I normally start with is like your hips are sliding. That's what's causing this to happen. And so let's work on I want you to feel like you're rotating into just like a brick wall. Like you're going to get all that momentum in your stride phase going forward. The hips are going to start rotating and they're just going to slam into that front leg and everything is going to transfer up the chain. And that normally will kind of clean this up. But I like the idea of kind of like the handle load is good for getting that like rotational acceleration, that tighter turn. It's a little bit easier to do. Arrow is going to try and take you away. So I can definitely see how that would be useful in that case.
One thing with my idea of it that I've been doing, and for some of my guys that have been struggling with the idea of being able to get that turn and get that direction, I've started having some guys swing with this, and what they're noticing is when they start to get to the point of when they want to have the hands or that slide shoot, the weight of it starts to actually kind of force the turn. I mean, I've only used it on a couple of guys and everything like that. I wasn't sure if that's something that is actually, doing something, or if that's just, me looking for that to help or anything like that. But is there any statistical, or, I mean, I'm sure it's like a cave, I don't even know if it would be K-Vest. How much are you guys, I'm going to rephrase that. How much for the gentlemen that you guys are seeing that kind of slide with, how much of their rear leg, how stable is their rear leg? How strong are they with their rear leg? And do you guys really work too much of that rear leg into something like that? Or is that not even really come into play in your opinion? I'm sorry, both of you.
Well, I don't know. I think it does come in because there's like one guy I'm working with right now. I'm just going through kind of making up a bunch of guys' recruiting videos and like getting ready to send those out and whatnot. And one of the guys I have is he's got a pretty big leg kick and he's got really good rear leg drive, but he kind of does exactly what JP was talking about with like that little hip slide first rather than just straight up rotating because he gets a little bit on his backside. I think the biggest thing is like the way it works once it starts turning, like it's very, very good and he uses it really effectively. But like with that leg kick, we are just off the machine today, and like he literally didn't have the ability to like stay in it and like coil. It was like once he started his forward movement, it was just like boom, right? It wasn't almost like that smooth movement where you're like here, land, boom, fire. It was like once you went forward, it was like, oh shit, I gotta like fall almost. So it's kind of interesting. I don't really have an answer, but yeah, it's like two things. Like he's super explosive with it, but then like he's not very stable with it at the same time.
Is are the pitches that he absolutely demolishes like major, like out front on the front leg, like pull happy pretty much, and like but anything to that right? And I want to hear what JP says before I kind of rock in. I don't know. I feel like the rear knee and rear leg is actually what I value the most in the swing, more important than anything. And so I might be interjecting what I think my values are, but I kind of, JP, what do you think? What do you see when you're out there?
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about in the past, I think like I think the load, like if you can't load properly, something's gonna break. Something's gonna have to be compensated for down the road. So, um, for sure, like the guys that struggle with that little linear movement before rotation, typically don't control that forward move as well. And so that's often guys that either don't get into a good enough hip hinge, or just kind of like throw that weight forward. So for a lot of those guys, it is kind of that load phase issue. I think it really just depends on the athlete. I think some guys, I got a couple of hitters right now that struggle with that. Really struggle getting into that hip hinge and holding the hip hinge as they go forward. And the guy I was talking about on Friday, like, he's an old Miss commit. Like he hits really well as it is. Like we're really not looking to make like major adjustments. Like his batted ball reports pretty much, I mean, dialed. Like we take away the little flare misses. Like he's fine. Like I'm not going to make him much better tinkering with it. So for him, like, yeah, ideally, do I want him to like load a little bit better and like get into the ground? Sure. But he's also athletic enough that if I can just teach him to just like turn a little bit earlier, like turn into that foot plant, he's going to be able to compensate from there well enough to perform at the level he's going to be playing at next year. So, but at the same time, like I'm another athlete and he's like an indie ball guy, kind of getting up there in age, and he's got like a big leg kick, kind of like a imagine a little kid doing a Justin Turner impression.
Oh,
That kind of like just big leg kick, huge forward move, everything kind of drives forward. And he gets into a really good hip hinge when he goes back. He just doesn't hold it going forward. And so like everything breaks down really fast for him. He's not as good of a mover as the other kids. So for him, like, yeah, we're gonna clean up his load phase. Like we're gonna get him into a better hip hinge and like teach him how to hold that all the way through, because he has to do that to perform. Because his bat speed's a lot lower. He doesn't hit the ball as hard. Like his batted ball numbers are a lot less. So we need a lot more improvements, which is going to come from kind of stabilizing that load.
One of the things that I think I've noticed more in amateur hitters as I've been going through, because that was my biggest thing when I was playing is, I mean, Burns, you can attest to this more than anybody. Like, dude, I was going. And if I was able to kind of guess right or get the timing of my foot planting, it worked well. Now, how often that happened, it started to decrease very rapidly once I started hitting against people that were better than me. And I never could understand why. And I've gone back and I've rewatched my video, and I'm now comparing it to a lot of high athletic like movers that the moment like it, I feel like it's a trajectory of like the higher you go, like you should be, yes, you're facing better players, but you yourself are getting better. And so it's kind of like a consistent here. Then at some point, once you reach that level of the everyone else is better than you, it kind of tampers. For me, it was like I'm better than everyone, better than immediate drop off. And I couldn't really understand why. And like I said, going back and comparing it to these swings, the ability for your rear knee to control, like Burns, you said earlier, once he picks his foot up, he just falls. And you can't control a fall because gravity controls it. You don't control it. And so the biggest thing that I struggled with was that coil, that rear leg ability to maintain some type of my body weight when I'm moving forward. So that way it's not a fall, but a controlled, placement of my foot. For Burns, for that guy, I don't know. And for maybe your JP, your indie guy, I don't know, shot in the dark, I would just look to see what their rear leg is doing throughout that coil. I've noticed a lot of guys that either A, their knee is too far over their shoes, so they're getting very quad dominant, or B, what actually happens, I've had a lot of people I've worked with a lot of kids that this has been taught to them, to instep that rear knee and have it inside their shoe, so that way the moment they pick their foot up, they're like immediately like jolting forward already. I've found getting that knee kind of pushed back into a somewhat squat-like position and then having a counter like small rotation and being able to hold that rotation, I value that more than going towards the pitcher. I think it's more important to get into a spot where you can control yourself rather than anything else. So, and again, this is me just thinking it through the lens of just like, I really believe that rear knee is, I think it's fucking huge. I really do. And I don't know, just out of curiosity, I would wonder, if you guys are A, willing to send video, or B, just like check that out and see what you guys think. And if I'm way off, like, I don't know, but.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think the rear knee is kind of like um, it's kind of a marker, but I think a lot of the breakdowns happen more from like what your pelvis does. Like we're talking about like coil, like more of a pelvis coil, and also like how much tilt are you getting in that pelvis to be able to like hold that hinge position, engage your backside, control that forward move. But yeah, I mean that's like you said, like it goes back to our timing conversation. Like if you can't be on time, like your life's gonna be really difficult.
Yeah.
For
Actually, sorry.
Go, no, you go, Burnsley. I was gonna run on my direction side. Keep running with this.
I was wanting to go back to like where you were saying about you, where it was like you were good, and then suddenly you started facing better competition. You're like, what the hell is going on? I think, especially up here, with the competition we're facing, it's really difficult to get guys to buy in. Because like I don't know, for like there's a lot of hitters I work with who like up here are like they ball out, right? And right now, especially on a recruiting standpoint, we don't have the luxury. We haven't had the luxury to be able to go down and do a um, U.S. trip, play some JUCOs, whatever, and actually like get these guys seen. Like that's exactly how I got to Garden, as I went down and pitched against them. Right? We don't have that luxury, so it's literally all video right now, and also they don't understand what the jump up is from up here down here, and it's freaking massive. It is huge. So I think that like the hardest thing for me is trying to get these guys to buy in and change. Even though they're like really good up here, it's like, well, why am I changing this when it's working? It's like, yeah, it's working against 75 and 80 right now. Like you've got time to adjust, but like when you start facing upper 80s, 90s, and guys who can actually throw 2, 3, 4 pitches for strikes, like it's just like your swing's actually not going to play. And I think that's one of the toughest things I'm having to do is I'm telling these guys the adjustments they're working on, and then it's been like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and nothing's really changed. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of speaking out loud, but it's like that's like one of the toughest things I have to deal with, especially like up here.
Oh,
Yeah, it's always the hard part is like for the job you want, not for the job you have. Like we're not like if you come in and tell me like you want to play college baseball, that's sick, dude. But like I'm not gonna tell you you're good when you're all your numbers say you're an average high school player. Like that's awesome. You might go ball out on varsity. That's sick. But like we're not getting any closer to what your ultimate goal is. Realistically, like I'd rather have you suck right now and like know that we're training for where you want to be.
getting the kids to understand that, like, especially, dude, I just got done. I kind of had to have that heart to heart to a lot of my guys. We did a 17U perfect game, the national circuit, the Georgia, Florida, Texas, Arizona, Georgia. Like we did all those things, and the we did not bat 400. We did not pitch under a 2.8. We did not do a lot of those things. And to kind of walk these parents, walk these players through, and they're like, well, because last summer during COVID, dude, we went 26-4. And we played in-state Colorado. We didn't do any out-of-state. And they felt in their minds, because they were 26-4 last year, was a better year for them than this year, where we went like, I don't even have the number on me, but like, I don't know, maybe like 15 and like 25. I don't know, something like that. And it's like this year, dude, we literally played almost every single pitcher we faced in any of those tournaments is going to a Power 5 conference. Like most of the relievers that we saw are Power 5 conference. Like the hitters you guys are facing might get drafted next year. And it was really important for them to see that, to make sure that they didn't get too comfortable thinking that their shit didn't stink. You know what I mean? And for some of my guys, they kind of understood and accepted and saw like, oh, I need to get better. Like me being good at JV and varsity does not mean diddly. And some kids, I had about 4 of them that got through maybe 3/4 of the season and, quit. Just because it was like, we suck, and that was it. And the understanding and getting through to that, it's tough, dude. It really is, especially when they're 16, 17, 18 years old and they don't understand the difference in, self-value and future value versus the opinion that all their friends have. That's a tough one, dude.
Yeah, and I think too, especially right now, is like there's guys that are actually getting like college looks over other guys, and like especially right now, like I've got one guy who's getting a good amount of looks, and he looks fucking really good on video, really good. Just like a smooth, clean swing, and like he just looks the part, right? But like he is not the best hitter by any means on the team, and he's getting more looks than guys who have definitely performed way better than him, and it's just like they just don't get it. It's like, because it's like, hey, this swing actually plays and looks really good. there's a different, and obviously like there's guys who have way better approaches than him, and that's probably part of the reason why they perform way better. But it's like understanding that's like, hey, this guy, like metrics wise, look wise, feel wise, everything it's just better. And it's kind of get wrapping their heads around that, where it's like there's some guys where it's like I'm not sending your video out yet because it's like where I'm just not going to get any hits. Like it's just not going to happen. Like we gotta smooth out your swing and make it look good, so I can send it down, because that's literally all we have. 'Cause even like
That's why,
statistically, I can send guys stats down, but it's ultimately they're like, well, you played in Canada, so it's like, oh, right there, like we're already a step behind.
that's the hard part about like the so many benefits to athletes with social media and the fact that a lot of recruiting is digital. There's a lot of benefits, but part of like the downside is like walking that line of like it's got to look good. Now it's not. Now it's not as much about like the coach comes to half of your high school games and he gets to actually see you swing it. Like your swing might look like shit, but if he comes to half your games and you ball out, like now you can kind of get past that. Now that everything's on video, it's like I don't really like that, especially with like even if you send numbers out and stuff, like you said, you send game numbers out. Like I played in Canada, like I don't really know what the level of competition here is, or you send more analytical numbers like exit velocity, launch angle, and all this other stuff. Like some coaches don't like really understand it, b value it, that kind of thing. So they're just really going off of like their subjective observation, and so like unfortunately, that's kind of the trend now. Is like I don't really have to make you good. I just have to make you look good to some extent. And like, yeah, you're playing really well now, but college coach, like these are the things they're going to point out and go, I don't think that's really going to play.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, it's like I'm completely a victim of that. Like if I was in my like grad year looking to get down to the States, like there's no way I would have got picked up without having actually played in front of coach. Like my when I signed, I was like 78 to 80. Could change up, but like who cares? I was 78 to 80, right? Like the only reason I got, like I had one offer. I went down to Garden. I pitched against them with my high school team. Like I went 7 innings, had 9 Ks. Like I balled out, and then I was 78 to 80, and I still only got like books after I like diced. So it's just like they don't get it. It's like that was my only chance. So it's like you guys don't have that. So we need to fucking get you looking good on video. It's the only way.
What is Driveline, and this is gonna be brutal for me. Is it called transferable skills? What is, and you may not even know, JP. What do they call it? It was in the youth development program. Or is it called transferable data, transferable metric, where you don't.
I think transferable skills
Is that what it is? Where when you're 8 years old, I don't care, if you can, aim or like do whatever. Like, are you moving fast? Are you moving athletic? Like those are transferable to the next year. Like, it's one thing I've heard high school coaches that have literally said like, just hit the ball on the ground because the other team can't field it. We'll win that way. And it's like, I'm glad you're going to win this one game, but if kids can't understand how to actually build and get that going and stuff like that, like at the next level, it's not going to make sense. And I think that comes down to also just maybe it's ignorance of not knowing what the next level is and stuff like that. I don't freaking know, but there is like disconnect at the youth, or not youth, like amateur level of understanding what's coming next and kind of being able to see that big picture. For me this past week, we sidetracked. I fucking love it. No issues with it. From the discipline, or not discipline, direction discussion. I'm gonna throw my little last week out there really quick. For me this past week, working on direction, I've seen a lot of guys that are their direction of the bat path, like you were saying, JP, has not necessarily been the most efficient. And so for a lot of my guys, for us working on that, we've done a lot of 45 open, a lot of 45 closed. We've done a lot of where I've adjusted the arm angle that I'm coming from, whether just slightly moving the L screen, going from baseballs to plyos, and then also wiffle balls. I've made a big jump. I've got legit, if you guys remember the wiffle ball bat when we were younger, the Easton one that looks like a real bat. So I got one of those, and I've got guys that are going back and forth between plyos, wiffles, and hitting them, and they're noticing that their direction was different going from hitting the plyo 45 open to hitting a wiffle ball 45 open. And just asking them why and understanding that timing is incredible and it affects a lot of direction. So when they were hitting the plyos, their direction looked really good. They were doing a great job of being able to work, up the middle or, working the opposite side a little bit, having that right bat path direction. If we go to the wiffle, all of a sudden they got this little light thing in their hand, and instead of having the direction of back here, all of a sudden now they're having to reach, and now they're getting around instead of having that good up the middle right side kind of direction on the 45 open. Now we're starting to roll over. Now we're starting to get over things, and it was because of our timing of what we were using. It affected our direction. And so just allowing them to kind of understand what direction is, the different kind of perspectives of direction, and how we can work on that. That was a big one. And we also used a lot. I've got a cricket bat, and I'm trying to, we got a cricket bat. And so when we've been using the 45 open and 45 closed, that's been a big one, just to kind of show them that, if I just start kind of going this way just a little bit with my hand direction, now that is whoa. God. We're back. We're back. Let me throw my headphones on. So Jason forgot his backpack here, and he had texted me a while ago saying that he's like, do you mind if I come back later and pick it up? I was like, oh yeah. And then out of nowhere, he opened the door, and I was like, what the hell? And then Strider comes running out, knocked over the light, freaking out at Jason, and that was interesting. So I was talking about direction.
Cricket bat.
Oh yeah, cricket bat. So cricket bat was rocking that out too. The direction with the hand and everything like that. Getting the idea of being able, the direction of that bat, we want to go kind of that forearm up to the sky, or the back forearm up to the sky, front forearm, down, getting that reach instead of immediately kind of coming over and stuff like that. That was a nice, good one on the direction side with that cricket bat too.
Yeah, direction's an interesting one. I don't.
Was Stevie the one that wanted direction?
I think Burnsy said it.
Burnsy, did you say direction?
No.
Burnsy's like, fuck no, I didn't say direction.
No, it was not.
So you're telling me Stevie P's fucking dumbass brings up,
It was 100% Stevie. I remember it distinctly.
and then declines all of our calls when we try and bring him on to talk about direction. Oh, we love Stevie, bro. Do you guys have anything from this past week working with some of your clients or anything like that? You guys either cool thing or a question mark that you guys weren't sure on?
Um,
I think.
I mean, we get kind of like push on the direction-ish kind of. Okay, college hitter, like really been working with him, like good bat speed, hits the ball pretty hard, but like not transferring his bat speed and exit velocity very well. And he came in with just a lot of ground balls, just a lot of pull side ground balls, and like an attack angle of like one on average. So like just really like flat and like torso lean this way and bat's just coming down and just a while to kind of figure out like okay like what's going on this way. Luckily for me and him, he hurt his wrist, his back wrist.
Is this the
Top
one you were
hand.
telling me about a couple weeks ago?
I think so.
Is it the
Think
wrist
so.
crutch?
No. No. That's the other kid. That's the other
Oh,
kid.
okay.
This kid's top hand was hurt, and so I was like, all right, I guess you're swinging one handed for like a week or two. Well, like he immediately started feeling like he could feel it a lot better for whatever reason, and like the ball flight was a lot cleaner, and so he started to kind of figure out on his own like what he needed to do to hit the ball in the air, and started swinging two hands like a week or two ago again, and the path was definitely a lot better, a lot more up, better direction. We keep using that term. But like still wasn't really getting the exit velocity that like we would expect. Like he should be like, his top eight should be definitely over 100. Like doesn't crack 100 very often, and hitting balls well, but not as like he wants to get drafted. So like if you're hitting balls 99, like that's not really good enough. And so for him, it was like, hey, like let's go back and look at like why are we hitting the ball in the air more often, and are we actually squaring the ball up? So like looking at some video and stuff, it's like his average attack angle went up to like 5, so a little bit better, but still pretty flat. When we went back and looked at the videos, like he's still just cutting everything. Like he basically turned into like a guy, took the torso lean away and kind of got really flat now, which is fine. But he's trying to hit the ball in the air. So being kind of the freak athlete that he is, he just like his brain just went like, oh, I'm just gonna hit the bottom of the ball a little bit more, and the ball will go in the air. It's like sweet, but like now we're not actually swinging up enough to make good contact. And so I didn't really talk to him that much. We kind of talked about the same kind of thing, like, hey, we need to like sit a little bit more as we go to load. Like we need a little bit more coil so we can hold that back leg a little bit longer, and get to a better position. And he just had a round where he just went off and like just PR'd a couple of times and just squaring everything up in the air. And I was like, okay. And so he gets out of the cage, and I was like, what happened? Like, what did you do? He was like, I just like thought about just like adding a little bit more coil. I was like, sick, dude. Like, do that more. Just keep going. Like, I don't feel like I did much for you, but I'm glad you figured it out. I guess like the takeaway from that was just like sometimes you gotta let athletes athlete, and let them get after it because most of the time they can figure it out, and also like when things go awry, I think like giving them the context of like why something's happening often can kind of help them come up with their own solutions a little bit better. I think the hardest thing for an athlete is, hey, I'm struggling and I don't know why. And so it doesn't even necessarily have to be like, hey, like this is what your body's doing or this is what your path's doing or whatever. Like, hey, like why is my exit velocity not good? Well, you're just clipping it a little bit too much. Okay, cool. Like now I can go try and fix that instead of, I could have just filled his brain with just a ton of cues and souped him up with a bunch of stuff. But you just gotta let athletes sometimes.
Just got coil a little more.
Gotta coil a little bit more. Apparently, that's not really what I mean. I was like, yeah, sure, dude, go for it. Like, apparently it worked. So I'm good. Only weird if it
That's
doesn't work.
It's interesting. I have a very like pretty much like a similar guy. Like he hits the ball. Like this dude's probably like 6'6", 6'7". He's like 250. And he's like a freak athlete. And like it's not even more in BP hits the shit out of it. It's in games. And it's the same thing. His attack. It's like literally a parallel swing. It's like his attack angle is like -2 to like 5. And I cannot like I've been trying a lot of different shit, and it's just not getting through at all. And it's just so like so hands driven, and so like upper body like strength driven. Like he gets away with it, he still hits the shit out of it because he's so strong. But like I just cannot get him to change that, and I don't know what to do.
That lumberjack swing.
The one-handed swings, like I got like 2 other guys doing one-handed swings now because I was like apparently worked for this kid. So
Top
like
hand or bottom hand?
Bottom hand.
Bottom hand, yeah. He does a lot of that.
Do bottom hand because like they get with the hands, the barrel's gonna drop a lot better. And we also use the youth overload bat, barrel load one. So it's a little bit shorter, and lighter, so they can kind of use one hand. But it also like if you don't burn with your body, like that barrel load is just gonna take you this way right away.
Yeah. It's like when we do like closed 45, like he's a lefty. It's just ground ball to second baseman like every single time, and it's just like, man, we gotta do something different here. Like we gotta find a way to adjust. I don't really know.
Do something.
I saw a good video, and I'll just see if I can try and find it on Twitter to send to you. And the guy, it was just kind of a change of perspective. What the dude was saying is that instead of feeling like the swing is coming across this way, we need to literally feel like the swing is coming like straight from like this angle and down. And how we get the rotation is through kind of like the turn of the body, but that our hands or barrel should almost feel like, I've always called it like an ice cream scoop for a lot of my guys, and I literally use this as an example. If you wanted to get ice cream out, like you have to let this go down to scoop the ice cream out, because if you try and go across like this, like you're never going to get any ice cream. And so I've literally put like a bucket behind the tee and this is an easy one to grab, but like it just be like, imagine that this bucket is your ice cream container and you have a scoop on it and you have to try and scoop the ice cream out. That's been one thing that I've kind of done with a guy, but what this guy was saying is like to take like lines as well. It's not who you guys think I'm talking about, but it's in that same circle. He's got like PVCs that show like the path, and that is supposed to be like this, and the only thing that makes it not this is the hip hinge. Less hip hinge, the more here, more hip hinge here, but like the default kind of. So I don't know, maybe for that player, different in visual or something. Like I said, I'll try and see if I can find it and send it over to you there, Burns.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, and also too, it's like he's just so hands driven. Like his hands really cast out just in every single swing. Like he doesn't have a very good ability to like just stay inside the baseball at all. Like he doesn't. His hand path is just not good at all. Honestly.
Is he like? What is it like? Does he hip extend early?
Yeah.
Is he just kind of like standing up and like this way?
Yeah.
Like that's what I was gonna say. Like most of the time when I see guys swing down, it's either they don't hold their posture and they go like this, and so the hands are gonna go the other way, or they early hip extend and your hands are gonna go where your hips go, and then they have to kind of like pull down and across, or they like their pelvis gets into a pretty good position of anterior tilt, and instead of like let's see if I can use this truck. So they get into a hinge position, and instead of rotating kind of down and then hip extending, they'll kind of hold that anterior tilt, and their hips will kind of end up turning kind of on that axis, down and in. So everything just kind of follows down and across.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you were saying. It's like like the more hinge, the more anterior tilt is going to be more vertical because we add more forward bend, less going to be more horizontal.
Yeah, no, it's funny too with like him is like he's really good competitor. Like is all his at bats, like approach, everything's good. It's just like his swing just does not let him do what he wants to do. And it was like he went down on a month trip this fall with like they're called Langley Blaze. They went down, played in like Arizona, Florida, and stuff like that. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I got 3 hits," and I was like, let me guess. I was like two
Between
hopper
second base
Round
and first baseman.
I was like two hopper smoked up the middle. He was like, yeah. And I was like, weak flare over the shortstop, and he was like, yeah. And I was like, ground ball, hard ground ball through like the 4-3 hole. And he was like, how did you know? And I was like, that's what your fucking swing does.
I've seen your swing, and I know where you can hit the ball.
It's so funny too. He had an at bat this year where he like hit like a backspin line drive that just like rode all the way and just burnt the center fielder for a triple. And I'm like, did you feel that? And he was like, no, like I don't know how I did that. And I was like, damn it. I was like,
Fuck.
I love kids like that where they're just like, nah, I just was good.
That's also athletes always get kind of like they're always in awe when like coaches can do that. They're just like, well, I like watch a kid swing a couple times and you're like, I bet you hit the ball there. They're like, well, how'd you know? I'm like, because you're like, your ball flight is directly correlated to what your path is. So I've seen what your path is, and I know the points where you can hit the ball hard, and so I know where the ball is going to go. My roommate says all the time, like, I can diagnose. You just show me what the ball does, I can tell you what their bat path looks like 100% of the time.
I love it.
Ball flight's going to give you all of the feedback in the world. If you understand like what the principles of everything is. It's the same thing with the guys that like slice. Like you see that slice and you know exactly where that barrel's going to cause the ball to do that.
It's crazy too. Like these, especially in high school, they don't really understand it. They don't like critically think about it too. Like the amount of times I'm like working with the guys off the tee and it's just like top spinner, and I'm just like, what do you think your barrel's doing? And they're just like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, it's like getting up and around. And they're like, oh. So
yeah, like how would you top spin that?
Yeah, like,
you're gonna go like this.
Have you guys been asking your guys if they're late or early yet?
Yes, and actually, I wanted to bring that up too. This is after talking about that this week. I literally noticed so much more guys just being like uber early, and I was like, holy fuck! How did I not like pick up on that before? It was actually it was a nice talking point with my guys this week, which was good. But yeah, just guys like especially because like this week I really like hammered the machine with most of them, and it was just like their adjustment was like, okay, I'm gonna be super early, and then it'd stop. They're literally just stop in time, and then it'd be like restart, and they'd be late, and I'm like, why? I'm getting my foot down early. It was like, well, you're not like you are, but then you're
loads early, but everything else is late.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I had that conversation with one of my favorite athletes to work with right now. Is like he's very smart. Like knows as much as I do, and like knows his swing really well. And he's kind of got like a weird like got this big leg kick, and he kind of does like almost like a Donaldson with the hands, where it's like this way, and so. We were sitting there watching him hitting the cage, and he's been working through some stuff and like makes adjustments really fast. And he takes the first round off the machine, and you can just kind of watch where his load gets to, and he like gets to here, and then it's like, oh shit, I have to go, and then the back goes like this because his hands don't get all the way stretched, and so he pulls everything down. And he kind of looks back and kind of like thinking about it for a second. I go, what are we thinking? He goes, I was just late. And I was like, yeah. And then the next one, he kind of like gets it too much and like goes really early and just kind of chops down on it. I was like, early? And he's like, yeah. and then next one he kind of gets it timed up, and he's a little early, and he just holds it a little bit longer, and then just hits a ball like 99 over the fence. And I was like, there it is. I was like, yeah. I was like, I can tell when you're gonna absolutely stripe a ball, like just based on like when you start going, where your hands get to, when you get to a good position. It was like, yeah, if I'm on time, I know what I can do with the ball. If I'm off time, I have to go. And I was like, yeah. So like for him, he's really working through like his path right now, his direction. Shocker. Direction is like he likes to kind of like get the hands up, and then sometimes he'll get a sway with his hands and kind of drop them underneath, and then try and hold that. But like being a lot more like direct to the ball, hold him here, and then firing from that position. And so it's kind of messed with his timing because he's used to going from a different place. So him working through that's been fun to watch.
The idea of the Goldilocks and the three bears is one of my favorite things to bring out to kids, especially the ones that are so scared to try something on the other side of the spectrum. And it's like the early kids or whatever, or the kids that, want to only hit ground balls, or the kids that only want to hit fly balls, or like whatever it is. That idea that you brought up, JP, with, he was super late and then super early, and then he was able to make that adjustment. If kids aren't able to do the opposite, if you've only ever been early in your life, let's equate that to like cold porridge. Whether you try room temperature or scalding porridge, that porridge to you, perspective-wise, is going to be burning. And so no matter what, whether it actually is what you're supposed to be doing, because you've been so used to one thing, you can't make the adjustment and understand, oh, that's actually like average, or that's actually middle. Because to you right now, you've only had 2 points. And so if you've only ever had this one, this is supposed to be the middle, and we got this one. When you try this guy, you think this is the middle. But when you have them able to try, cold porridge, what they've been used to, then they try the super hot porridge. And then after that is when they have that room temperature, then that's where they're able to kind of understand and go, oh, so I've always been that way. I tried that way. And that's how I was able to understand what being right is. You can't be right if you haven't been wrong on both sides, is how I see it. So for your kid to kind of experience that, I think that's pretty cool. Let's see here.
Yeah, especially with guys who are just like very, very stuck. It's like I always tell them, it's like kind of same thing. I'm just like, you need to overcorrect. Like, I don't know, for example, like guys just roll over, and it's like, hey, why don't you try and catch this out of the catcher's glove and see what happens? And like, realistically, they're not going to do that, and then they try it, and then it's like, boom, awful gap, and they're like, oh, okay. And it's like, man, just like go to the overt extreme and see what happens.
And then do it until it doesn't, like do it until you start doing what like the opposite thing, and then you can go, okay, like I can start working back from there.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's also the idea, the difference between cue and mechanic, because do you actually physically want them to hit it out of the catcher's mitt? No, but that mental cue is something that is allowing for the mechanics to come out. Because until you make that cue of, if they were actually to physically hit it out of the catcher's mitt, like, you know what, thank you for being so like, able to make an adjustment like that. But, Burns, I doubt you actually wanted him to, or them to do that. And so what ended up happening is the result of what you've been trying to get to, but until you've changed that perspective on them, they're not going to be able to get to. I've had a kid that was just going through their tee work and was just hitting like little lazy, like just back of the net, little lazy things. And I'm just staring at it and I'm like, what is this? What are you getting out of this right now? Oh, I was like, all right, like imagine go through the same exact thing, but I want you to imagine you're burning it over the center fielder's head. And nothing physically in the mechanic side changed, but that just changed your perspective, went from like little, like kind of just to the back of the net to also woof, woof. And just the idea of giving them like a goal or a cue or something, and allowing, like you were saying earlier, JP, let athletes athlete, dude. Let athletes athlete. And if anyone was able to tune in, I had a great gentleman named Jason Hirsch on the Hit Chat Chit Chat interview, literally just a few minutes before we started this. And he honestly said the same thing. Really just hammered home, like, you got to let players just play. You got to let kids just be kids. You got to let the athlete be an athlete. You can't, as an instructor or as a parent, try and put your thumb on something, because then you're smothering it rather than being able to help it. And I think one thing that could be an amazing thing to move on. Nice roommate. Oh, thank you. Appreciate you, my guy. Symphix. SPHYNXX. Any ideas, gentlemen?
That sounds right.
Beautiful. I think that's kind of an amazing transition. I'm going to throw this out. If you guys don't want to do it, or if you guys have something else in mind, let me know. But I think one thing that we can kind of look at for this next week is just the perspective of which we kind of talk with the players. Just going through, like, I mean, us as an instructor, a lot of the time a player views us as someone that's been there, done that. As us and as an instructor, sometimes, it's easy to view the player as they don't know what they're doing. They're not very smart or whatever. Like, that's why they're seeing us, or whether it be anything on the perspective side. But what are your guys' thoughts on having that be our kind of focus or whatever for this next week, is just perspective?
Yeah, sure. I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, gentlemen, do you guys have anything you want to throw in there?
Nope, not off the top of my head.
I mean, I think we hit it. I mean, especially when we talk about direction, like, have a good intent, give the athletes a good intent, and sometimes that's overcorrecting the intent.
Actually, I want to add one more thing. What are your guys' ideas of trying to get people to start submitting their swings for review? Like, instead of, love you, Strider. Instead of having Strider right there, I would be able to play someone's swing, and we can all sit here and go, me, I have an absolute boner for the rear knee, and I'm probably going to look at and think of everything that could help when looking at the rear knee. I think all of us having a different perspective might come out to be something different. So if you guys have anybody that you think might want to send in some video, whether just a random or one of your players or somebody I think that could be something that we can look to kind of incorporate.
Yeah, sure, I'm down. I got a dumb amount of video, and I'm always looking for some help with analyzing guys too, so that'll be good.
I love it, dude.
That'd be sweet.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it. This was another edition of Group Chat. I don't even know what the fuck I'm calling it, so submissions will be nice if you guys have any ideas.
That's Stevie's job now that he missed. He has to.
Fuck no. You guys see what happened when we gave him any kind of control last week? Got us sitting over here about fucking direction.